News, folks, good news. The Buddha's own pigeon monastery has been discovered. Imagine it, folks. The Buddha's own pigeon monastery has been discovered where he caused a dove to fall down. Look at the Buddha's shadow sitting on rock. That's where he sat on rock, folks. And the Buddha's shadow of the Buddha's feet on rocks. The shadow of the Buddha's feet on rocks, folks. This is where the Buddha's once stood at his the footmarks remain on the rocks, and that's where he sat, folks. So if you want to view the pigeon monastery, the Buddha's pigeon monastery, stay tuned till the end of this video. Okay, now folks, I have shown you Kendwa Tilla Pahad. Now after that, Huen Tsang goes around what do you call it, I forget the leaves, 140 leaves to Mathokhar Duh, which the translator Samuel Beale mispronounces as Kapotika. That is actually Mathokhar Duh. Mathokhar Duh means a bird fell down into fire. So folks, the story goes like this, according to Huen Tsang, that what do you call it, the Buddha, he had arrived there and preached to a great congregation for just one day. And there was a bird catcher who made a living out of catching birds and selling them and eating them. But that day, when the Buddha was preaching, he did not catch a single bird in his nests. Not even one bird did he catch in his nest. So he understood that it was some magic done by the Buddha. So he went to the Buddha and he told him, "Ki, you are happy that his family had gone hungry today." The Buddha told him, "You want to eat? Okay, build a fire. Build a fire." So this bird catcher, he builds a fire, and a dove suddenly dies and falls into the fire. The bird catcher is delighted. He takes the bird back to his home, and over there he eats it and his family eats it. But then he realizes that the person who had given him the bird was not a unique person. He was someone special. So he comes back and then he, what do you call it, becomes, and he refuses to go back home, and he becomes an arhat over here. He becomes an arhat over here. There is an Ashokan stupa to mark that spot, folks. There is an Ashokan stupa to mark that spot. Anyway, what do you call it, that is Mathokhar Duh. And just next to it, and this is the unique story about it. Okay, folks. Now, when I went there, this is Mathokhar Duh, mispronounced by Samuel Beale, who translated Huen Tsang as Kapotika. Now Mathokhar and Kapotika, Mathokhar Duh and Kapotika, they sound similar. Mathokhar Kapotika, Mathokhar Kapotika. See, they sound similar. So basically what happens is, when I reached there, I saw a small hillock, rocky hillock, with you know, the rock, some parts of the rock is flattened and what do you call it? It shines. It shines, and it's perfect to sit down and meditate. And some people told me, go up and see Dargah Baba's feet. I went up and I realized that the locals were praying to the Buddha as the Dargah Baba. The Dargah Baba, the Muslim Baba. Anyway, what do you call it? And there were two shadowy marks on the rock which looked like feet. And according to they had made a wall around it, small, around 2 feet high wall around it, and people came and prayed to it, saying it belonged to Dargah Baba. Actually, it belonged to what do you call it? It's the Buddha's footmark. So, and then just next to the hillock is an Ashokan stupa with around half a dozen what do you call it, stoves. Not what do you call it, the modern stoves, those brick ones where you use firewood, where you use firewood. So there are half a dozen stoves. And when I went down to the stupa, I realized everyone was cooking chicken curry, and they weren't Muslims. They were all Hindus. I was surprised. They were all Hindus and they were cooking chicken curry right on the spot, on the stupa, which marked the place where the dove had fallen down into the cooking fire. Right on the spot where the dove had fallen down into the cooking fire, these people had, there were half a dozen cooking stoves, the what do you call it, wood stoves. So basically what we call in Hindi or Bihari chulha. And the local was complaining that the main what do you call it, chulha, the main stove was in the mosque, which was on the stupa, Dargah Baba's mosque. Now the story up here has changed slightly. The story has changed slightly. It's a bit different from Huen Tsang's story. Up here it is this Chulhai Baba. The person's name, by the way, is Chulhai Baba. The person who was the hunter, the bird hunter. His name was Chulhai Baba. But up here they have made him into a milkman. He was a Yadav. It is the Jadav caste. He belonged to the Jadav caste. He had some cows, and one day this Dargah Baba is none other than the Buddha. Dargah Baba, he came and he asked for milk, and the person who narrated this story to me told me, you see, we Jadavs, we are sort of, naughty. So what do you call it? There was a cow which had, stopped giving milk. There was a cow which had stopped giving milk. So he told Dargah Baba, you milk that cow and drink the milk. So what happened was, Dargah Baba took a pail and he milked that cow and he drank that milk. A cow which couldn't be milked. So that was a sort of unique thing. This Chulhai Baba, he went back to Mathokhar village, and over there he realized that this Dargah Baba was special. So he freed all his cows He gave them away. And then he came to Mathokhar, where the stupa is, and he became an arhat, and he stayed there and he never returned home. Now this part of the story tallies with Huen Tsang's story, folks. Now this part of the story tallies with Zhang Zhang's story. So the difference is that the difference is in this story it is he milked the cow, and in Zhang Zhang's story is he became a dove and he fell into the fire, into the kitchen fire, into the wood stove. So basically what happens is actually some stories have changed from Huen Tsang's time. Like there's another change. When Huen Tsang says, when the Buddha escaped from his palace the first time, and he exchanged his robes with a hunter, according to Huen Tsang, he took the hunter's deer skin and gave him his upper and lower garment, and took the hunter's deer skin. But in Buddhist texts now, it is he took the hunter's saffron robe. He took the hunter's saffron robe. See, there's a shift in the story from non-veg to vegetarianism, from killed animal to cloth. Up here, from a killed bird to milk. So there's a shift in the story. It seems it happened after Huen Tsang's time, after 1300 years. So what do you call it? But in Huen's time, Zhang Zhang's time, it was this story. So folks, check up the video of this stupa and this hillock with the Buddha's footmark on it. Thank you. Now let's see where Huen Tsang takes us after the Indrasailaguha mountain, which is your Kendwa Tilha Gulelwa mountain. Going 150 or 160 li to the northeast of the Indrasailaguha mountain, we come to the Kapotika or pigeon convent. There are about 200 priests who study the principles of the Sarvastavada school of Buddhism. Now, whenever Huen Tsang takes me to a place where they study Sarvastavada school of Buddhism, I land up in a place where there are Jadavs, and they pray to a pair of feet, and they call their temples Gorayas, not temples, Gorayas. And basically in the temple there are a pair of feet. So this is, I think, is the Buddha's feet. Now the Jadavs, Stavada, Jadav, Stavada, and Sarvastavada, it's, I think, Goraya Jadav. Folks, mispronunciation. This Sarvastavada is a mispronunciation, Buddhist mispronunciation of Goraya Jadav, because wherever Huen Tsang tells me about Sarvastavada school of Buddhism, I see Goraya Jadavs praying. They call their temples Gorayas, and in the temple is the feet of Goraya Baba. Now who is Goraya Baba? That is the Buddha, no one else. Buddhism. Now to the east, now 200 priests who study the principle of the Sarvastavada school of Buddhism, where in Kapotika, which is 150 or 160 li east of northeast of Indrasailaguha mountain. Now 160 li will be around 45 kilometers northeast of Indrasailaguha mountain. So let's see where Kapotika is. So here you have your Shiv Mandir Kendwa Tilha Gulelwa mountain, which I showed you. Now 45 kilometers northeast is Mathokhar. Mathokhar, see, this is set at 10 kilometers. The bar is set at 10 kilometers. So you can see exactly from here to here is easily 45 kilometers. Mathokhar is Kapotika. I have broken down the words up here also. I'll show you. See, here you have Mathokhar Kapotika. Ma ka to po khartika. Ma ka to po khartika. So Mathokhar is Huen Tsangs Kapotika, and it is exactly 45 kilometers southeast of northeast of Kendwa Tilha Gulelwa mountain. The is mispronounced Intolo Lokia mountain. So this is Mathokhar, and Mathokhar Duh. The actual name is Mathokhar Duh. See, I will enlarge this and see. Mathokhar Duh. Duh means to fall down into a fire. Mathokhar is something flying, a flying object. Duh means to fall down into fire. Now let's see what Huen Tsang has to tell us about this place. To the east is a stupa which was built by Ashoka Raja. Formerly Buddha, residing in this place, declared the law for one night to the great congregation. At this time there was a bird catcher who was laying his snares for the feathered tribe in this wood. Having caught nothing for a day, he spoke thus: "My bad luck today is owing to a trick somewhere." Therefore he came to the place where Buddha was and said in a high voice, "You are speaking the law today, O Tathagat has caused me to catch nothing in all my nets. My wife and my children at home are hungry. What are expedient shall I try to help them?" Then Tathagat replied, "If you will light a fire, I will give you something to eat. If you light a fire, I will give you something to eat." Then Tathagat made to appear a large dove, which fell in the fire and died. Then the bird catcher, taking it, carried it to his wife and children, and they ate it. And they ate it together. Then he went back to the place where Buddha was, on which by the use of experience he framed his discourse so as to convert the bird catcher. Having heard the discourse, he repented of his fault and was renewed in heart. Then he left his home and, practicing wisdom, reached the holy fruit, and he became of this the Sanghdharma was called Kapotika. Matlab, the Sanghdharma was called Mathokhar Duh. Kapotika, Mathokhar Duh. Now, folks, this bird catcher's name was Chulhai, because on the ground in Mathokhar Duh, the folklore is on Chulhai. There is a slight difference in the folklore. Up here, they say the Buddha, became a dove and fell down into the fire. And this bird catcher, he comes back, and the Buddha explains to him and manages to convert him. So the bird catcher never goes back, folks. The bird catcher never goes back. So basically this is the stupa is here. See, this is where that round dot is. That is where the stupa is, and it's a very nice place. See, the stupa, the Ashokan stupa is here with a mosque on top. And this is a small hillock, a rocky hillock with the Buddha's footmarks on this. Now, the unique thing about this place is the people pray to the Buddha as the Dargah Baba, as the Muslim Baba. The Muslims have taken over this plot and they pray to this place as the Dargah Baba. And the story about the Dargah Baba, and both Hindus and Muslims pray here at the Dargah Baba. Now the story about the Dargah Baba is a bit different than Huen Tsangs. Up here they say Dargah Baba wanted to drink milk, he was very thirsty, so he asked Chulhai. For milk. Now Chulhai was a cocky person. He pointed out a cow which never gave milk. The cow never gave milk, it had stopped giving milk. So it was an unmilkable cow. So he pointed out that cow, you milk that cow and drink the milk. So the Dargah Baba went and he milked the cow and he drank the milk. Now Chulhai was surprised. He sent off all his cows and he stopped going to his home and he stayed here and he became a very important sadhu, which this tallies with Huen Tsang's story. Now what else tallies with Huen Tsang's story is this: the local folklore is on milk, not on a dove falling down, but there are half a dozen chulhas. Chulha means earthen stove for to burn earthen stove, wood stove. There are half a dozen wood stoves, earthen stoves called chulhas. And on Thursdays and Fridays, Hindus come here. Mostly Hindus, very few Muslims come here. Mostly Hindus come here and they cook chicken curry. Right on the spot where the dove fell down, they cook chicken curry. Now Hindus generally, they don't have festivals where they eat meat. But up here everyone cooks chicken curry. And basically they cook chicken curry and the whole area comes here. And imagine it, in Thursdays, the whole of India goes meatless. The Hindus don't eat meat on Thursdays.
Enjoy your first viewing of the pigeon monastery Mathokhar Duh. This is the Buddhist pigeon monastery, and see, this is the Ashokan stupa Huen Tsang has written about. It has got a mosque on top of it, bang on top of the Ashokan stupa. Folks, this is the exact place where you must have heard of the story of the Buddha causing a pigeon to fall down into a fire so that a bird catcher could eat. Folks, there was a bird catcher who used to catch birds and sell them and eat. And what happened that day, the Buddha was here preaching to a great congregation, and that day the bird catcher couldn't catch any birds. So he suspects the Buddha. He comes and he tells the Buddha, so you are happy. His family and he had gone hungry that day. The Buddha says, make a fire, make a chulha. And that bird catcher makes a fire and a dove falls down into the fire. The bird catcher takes it home and then he cooks it, and he realizes that that person is special. So he comes back to the Buddha, and the Buddha gives him a sermon, and he understands the sermon, and he doesn't go back home. He stays here exactly on the spot where the mosque is. He stays here and he becomes an arhat. Folks, Now on the ground, his name is Chulhai Baba. The story is of Chulhai Baba. But the story up here has changed a bit. The story up here, it has become from a non-veg story to a veg one. Instead of the Buddha, you have the Dargah Baba. Instead of the Buddha, you have the Dargah Baba with a similar story, and both Hindus and Muslims praying to him. And folks, this is the story that this Chulhai Baba from Mathokhar. Chulhai Baba had his cows, but there was one cow which had stopped giving milk. It had stopped giving milk. It couldn't give milk. So this Chulhai Baba, this Dargah Baba comes and says, "I am thirsty. Please give me some milk." So Chulhai Baba was a cocky person. He showed the Dargah Baba the cow that wasn't giving milk. He said, "Go milk that cow and drink as much milk as you want." But what happens? The Dargah Baba takes a pail and he milks the cow and he drinks the milk. The Chulhai Baba thinks, no, this person is special, and he sends all his cows back home and he stays here, and he stays here forever. So basically this part of the story tallies with Huen Tsang. In Huen Tsang's story also, the bird catcher leaves his home, comes here, and he stays here and becomes an arhat. And in this case, the Chulhai Baba, he does not go back home, and he stays here for the rest of his life. So this is the stupa, folks, which marks the spot where Chulhai Baba, and the locals, they claim that this mosque is exactly on Chulhai Baba's chulha, the stove in which the bird had fallen. The stove in which the bird had fallen. The wood stove in which the bird had, cooking stove in which the bird had fallen. So, and in Hindi, in Bihari language, what do you call a cooking stove? You call it a chulha. You call it a chulha. So this story, it seems, the word chulha for cooking stoves came from this bird catcher. It was his name, Chulhai. So, and from him the word has come here. Folks, so now enjoy the video of the pigeon monastery, the Buddha's pigeon monastery. Folks, I have found it. It's great. Thank you. This is a hill adjacent to the monastery, folks. This is a hill adjacent to the rocky hill, adjacent to the monastery. It has got a lot of polished rocks for meditation. See, look at this polished rock. Perfectly polished. You can see that an important person sat down and meditated on it, like Sariputta, Mahabhauliyana, or Kashyapa, or what you call it, Ajnata Kaundinya. See, all these people must have come here and sat down with the Buddha to meditate. So that's why it's so well polished, folks. That's why it's so well polished. And above this is the place where the Buddha sat, folks. It's sort of, there is a shadow on the rock, and people claim it is the Dargah Baba. And Dargah Baba's story is similar to the Buddha. Look, this is another polished rock for some important monk to sit and meditate. And it's a perfect place for meditation, folks. People who want to meditate on the pigeon monastery, on the Buddha's, where the Buddha had caused the pigeon to fall into a fire. See, this is the rock on which the Buddha must have sat. This is Dargah Baba, and that shadow you see in between, that is the shadow of the Buddha. Folks, that is the shadow of the Buddha. This is unique because this is the only place where you may get the Buddha's shadow and the shadow of his footmarks, folks. Look at that. The shadow of the Buddha in the pigeon monastery. They call it the Sarvastavadin school of Buddhism. And that is your Goraya people, the Goraya Kasi, that same rock, you can see the shadow where the Buddha sat, the shadow left behind by the Buddha. Now these people call it the Dargah Baba. So folks, This is a unique find of mine. Thank you to Huen Tsang. Huen Tsang, we in India are grateful to you. And imagine it, what do you call it? The people, see the feet. The people who live nearby are of the Goraiya subcaste of Jadavs. Goraiya means feet. See, they are the shadow of feet. 2 feet. They are the Buddha's feet, folks. They are the Buddha's feet according to the Sarvastavada, the school of Buddhism. They are the Buddha's feet and they are prayed to by the Goraiya Jadavs. Goraiya means feet. Gor means feet, and they are prayed to by the Goraiya Jadavs who live close by. So folks, see that is your Ashokan stupa below the hillock. That is the Ashokan stupa below the hillock with your earthen stoves. You can see half a dozen earthen stoves. Imagine it, on Thursdays and Fridays, Hindus gather here and cook chicken curry. Why? Cook chicken curry right on the spot where the Buddha caused a dove to fall into a fire. They cook chicken curry. Hindus come here Thursdays and Fridays and they cook chicken curry here. Now, that is the day when the Buddha caused the dove to fall on the fire in Chulai, Baba's Chula. Now, see, you can see the Ashokan stupa below me, and there's a mosque on it with 5 graves. These 5 graves, 5 men, they died in some battle. Now look at the stupa. I'm from the bottom of the stupa. You can see the mosque on top and the beautiful curve of the Ashokan stupa, folks. This is the Kapotika stupa, Mathokhar Duh. Huen Tsang calls it Kapotika. This is Mathokhar Duh. And Mathokhar Duh means to fall into fire and burn. So this is your Mathokhar. Mathokhar is a bird that falls into fire and burns. So folks, this is the Buddha's pigeon monastery. This is where the Buddha, when he came here, he caused a pigeon to fall into a fire so that he could convert the pigeon catcher to Buddhism. Folks, this is a unique find of mine. This should be opened up for religious tourism for Buddhists. Thank you.